A new contender enters the arena, a new gladiator set to knock the hell out of the Galileo G8, and at half the price, it has a good chance to. This is a $46 mobile phone snap and clip style controller with magnetic Hall effect thumbstick modules, and today we're going to test and review it. Let's get it.
This is your controller captain. We've reached 6,900 feet. Go ahead and start flicking the sticks and mollywopping the back paddles.
You don't like back paddles? How about those rear buttons? We've tested almost 100 custom and premium controllers, and we're only at the beginning. You need a thumbstick guide or tutorial on how to overclock your controller? Check out the controller playlist.
Bing bong.
Controller captain out.
A quick disclaimer for my audience, the Stallions and Stallionettes. This controller was sent for review, but this is going to be an honest, comprehensive review. I haven't been paid or told to say anything about it, so if there's any cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement, you're gonna hear about it. So these companies make better products over time.
Looks like you don't need a knife. You have this little pull tab branded with GameSir, a yes sir. If you want to pause the box to read some of the key features, you may do so now. Now I do really like the use of space. This is a really compact box because it has the bare necessities and nothing else. It's a small controller, so it's a really small box, not a lot of dead space and excess packaging. Controller's held in this little moisture wicking baggie. First impressions, this is a lot smaller than I thought it would be, but she said unfortunately, and because of that, this really isn't comparable to something like the Galileo G8, which is a full-size snap and clip. It has larger thumbsticks with more range of motion or travel, and these face buttons are super small, compact, which is good for travel, but probably not the best for ergonomics or comfort. As for the included accessories, you do have this little piece of documentation, which is going to have a QR code for support, as well as their contacts, basically, where you can flex about how awesome your controller is on social media. You have this little guitar pick placard, which is your quality control pass thing. Thanks. And then you have these thumbstick caps, which are very small, compact, because the analog sticks are muy poquito, tiny. Then you have the instruction manual pamphlet or brochure, which smells like the hands of a dozen dock workers and warehouse delivery men. You know how when you get DoorDash delivered and the bag smells like the guy or gal had been delivering food all day, and kind of that outdoor smell that we all get? This piece of paper smells like so many people's hands, dead skin follicles have just been grinded into this. It has that, y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you just came from the outdoors smell on here. It's crazy. But this is a lot smaller than the previous GameSir manuals, which usually open up larger than that 40-inch old TV over there. This is smaller, but still not great. Speaking of small, the font is relatively tiny, so if you don't have the eyes of an eagle, you're probably squinting. And it is broken into languages, so English is going to be right there. What I do with these instruction manuals, and I think they're meant or designed to be used like this, is whenever you find your language, you just fold it. That one is face up. So I have English looking me in the face now. As for the cosmetics or appearance, a ton of controllers recently have been going for this SNES, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Polish My Plums crazy purple, to the point to where it's starting to get a little bit oversaturated. Too many controllers are doing this, and some of them do it a lot better than this. For example, the plastics do look and feel a little bit cheap, but I will say the color matching here, all the components are the same plum purple. The bumpers, triggers, which is great because when they're mix matched, that's just a recipe for disaster. But this definitely looks and feels like a very cheap gamepad. Everything is small, compact, light, very different from things like the Galileo G8 or the Razer Cairo, I'm messing that up, the Razer backbone style controller. What really shits on my corneas in the cosmetics department is going to be the back, where this rear shell meets purple graphic back here. It has this really ugly thick seam, this hump that's not only felt but definitely seen even through camera. And then you have all these exposed screws which look like either T8s or they're definitely T-somethings, but they're silver instead of maybe black or gray. And then you got this divider or stripe down the side, which screams cheapo. I'm gonna give the cosmetics a 3 out of 10. As for ergonomics or comfort, this is not a very comfortable snap and clip style controller. With a modern phone, which are all pretty large, it's gonna be extended about like that. And because this is a pretty compact controller, you don't have very large ergonomic palm grips. And because of the shape, it's basically a rectangle, although it does have somewhat rounded edges. It's not the most comfortable. As you can see, my palm kind of has the fatty, meaty part wrapping around the bottom. But if you have medium to larger size hands, as you can see, it's pretty much engulfing this entire controller, which is a lot smaller than it looks like in pictures and videos. And in gameplay, you actually have to cock your hand at a pretty weird angle to access this right analog stick. You can either dislocate your thumb like that, that's always fun, or you can just shift out your hand like that. That's kind of what I do, just hold it like that. Not very comfortable. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. As for perceived build quality, this definitely feels very toyish and cheap, not only because of its compact size, but also the plastics used. This is a very light snap and clip style controller at this many grams. And some of the things that raise an eyebrow for me, like the 90s Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, is going to be this USB-C port, which has this entire cutout for a dead panel around it, which shows the fitment just isn't the best. It's not over here, just over here with the USB-C port, which is also a little bit loose and wiggly. One of the most important aspects of a mobile style controller is going to be how secure does it feel to mount your phone, and it's pretty good. When you get about halfway extended out, it does get a little bit wiggly, but not bad at all. And you do have this nice rubber coating, which not only looks nice, but will hold your phone in place, more rubber coating on the top and bottom, and then you do have this USB-C port, which does swivel. I wish this could remove and you could insert a lightning cable, so this would be compatible with previous generation iPhones, but this is only going to be for iPhone 15, which uses USB-C, and of course Android phones, which have been using USB-C back to the Civil War. I really do like that the serial number and the regulatory sticker is hidden under there. That's kind of cool. A little peekaboo, how do you do? And how I do is give it a 4 out of 10 for build quality, because it feels like a absolute toy. To best put the build quality into words, when you grab something like the G8 Galileo, that almost feels like a normal full-size Xbox or PlayStation controller, but one that expands in the center for a phone. You grab this and you're like, yep, this is a $40 snapping clip. Warranty and returns, they make it very easy to get to this page. You do have 30 days for a return, swap it for a freshie, and 1 year of coverage if you have any issues. You can also extend that by 6 months by filling out that little placard and registering. The D-pad or direction buttons is one of my favorite components on this controller, and definitely one of the redeeming factors. Despite the fact it is really small like the rest of the controller, the plastics used don't feel terrible. They don't feel great either, but what does feel really good is going to be the actuation. I got 0 false actuations, and besides the fact you have to either move your thumb at an awkward angle or just kind of adjust your grip, that's more likely what you're going to do. Once you've done that, the D-pad is not only serviceable, usable, but also feels very nice. Not very loud, but gives you a nice tactile feedback and positive actuation each time you click them, not only in the 4-way gates, but also diagonal inputs as well. Now, there isn't 8 distinct gates, but there is very distinct diagonal steps when you press 2 of the individual inputs together, so right and bottom. And there is a little bit more side-to-side player wiggle than I'd like to see, but none of that was actually felt as slop or anything like that, and it felt really tight and secure. Enjoyed the D-pad quite a bit. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. As for the face or action buttons, that kind of falls in line with the D-pad, as it feels like the mechanism to actuate it is identical, about the same force, same sound, which is a good thing, but they are very small, very close together, and because of that, I did get some false actuation, some false inputs where I would accidentally press 2 buttons or the wrong button that I didn't want to press when I was in the heat of gameplay. But I do like that they're flat, not matte or glossy. Going into buying this controller, you just have to know that it is a compact controller, so everything from the face buttons to the analog sticks is going to be rather tiny. Now, if you've accepted that and you even want that, that's what you're looking for, this is perfect, and these face or action buttons are quite good. I'm going to give them a 7 out of 10. The accessory button suite I'm not a huge fan of, and it's not GameSir's fault, but this controller is so compact that they kind of ran out of places to put these additional buttons. So you got the G and S button up here, which are in a good place. You can get to them pretty easily. I wish they were a little bit raised from the front shell. They're almost flush, which makes it kind of hard to hit, but they're in a good place. But these bad boys down here, which is your screen capture and your home button, probably don't use those too often in gameplay. This is to go back to the home menu of the Switch, and this is to capture gameplay clips. So things you probably don't do very often in comparison to pause and select. So I'm glad that these are the buttons are down here and not these two. That'd be super silly. But it'd be kind of nice if they could have put these right next to these bad boys, but again, there wouldn't be much space for that. So I guess they kind of worked with what they had, which is all you can do in this cruel world. I'm going to go ahead and give the accessory button suite a 5 out of 10, right down the middle. As for the thumbsticks, analog sticks, they are Paquito, really small, overlaying some B-roll so you can see exactly how small. Also, there's a weird seam down the equator, or the hemisphere, if you will, down the base of these thumbsticks, which looks kind of cheap, and also it's vertical on the left, but horizontal on the right analog stick, which throws my brain for a bit of a loop. But what threw me for a loop in a good way is going to be how grippy the rubber silicone compound is. Also, there is no visible anti-friction rings, but it is completely smooth when you are on the outside of the thumbstick gates. Also, clicking in the sticks feels secure, but doesn't really sound the best. A little bit hollow and tinny. Rattling around inside of those loosey-goosey plastics. But these do feel great, despite the fact they're small. These provide plenty of grip and actually have way more range of motion or travel than I thought they would. In fact, they don't really feel like they have that much less travel than a full-size controller. Obviously, they do a little bit, but not by much. Let's get those optional thumbstick caps. Where'd they go? From afar, from a quick glance, the thumbstick caps included look identical. However, they're actually two different sets. You have these two concaves and then two domes. They both feel great despite the fact they are really small. You have this line design around the outside, and then the silicone or compound in the middle is really grippy as well, despite the fact it is smooth. There's no dots or stippling, but it is still very grippy. Yeah, I like these quite a bit. The bumpers and triggers are some of my favorite components on this controller, in addition to the D-pad, which we covered a couple of feet to the right on the desk. What I like so much about the bumpers is going to be how easy they are to actuate with either the meat of your finger or with the tip. It's like the same amount of force, and also you get a nice tactile click. It is a little bit louder than I'd like, but not obnoxious by any means. And even if you're wearing a headset or you're blaring your, well, I guess your cell phone speakers wouldn't be overpowering your ears like surround sound in a house, you get a nice tactile click on your fingertip to let you know, yep, I just pressed that bumper. The only thing I do not like is it is smooth plastic up here. There is no stippling or dots or rubber coating. Very slick. Same thing on the triggers over here, which don't have any trigger stop or lock system. No big deal. Wouldn't really expect that. These triggers are spring loaded with a strong degree of resistance, pushing back on my fingers. So if you're playing a racing game, you're trying to modulate the throttle and brake. Granted, you're playing one of the few mobile games that does support analog triggers, considering most of them are designed for touch controls, which are just going to be on-off buttons. But if you can actually utilize these in game, these triggers do feel phenomenal. I don't like that there's a little bit of an audible squeak from the metal spring in there. It's pretty gosh darn quiet. The mic might not even have picked it up, and it's only on the left trigger. Maybe that'll break in over time, but I've been using this for almost a week now, and it's dead silent over here on the right trigger. I'm gonna go ahead and give both the bumpers and triggers, which fit very nicely together, a 7 out of 10 for both. Like them a lot. Some additional features I want to go over this controller. You do have a hair trigger mode, so think of it like a software trigger stop or lock system, and you can engage that by following these steps. This of course has turbo, which is pretty popular on third-party gamepads. You can also change the ABXY buttons. So if you're going with the Xbox or PlayStation thumbstick layout or the Switch layout, you can apply that. You can also increase or decrease the volume by holding down the home button and up and down on the D-pad, and you can switch modes by holding down G and S button for 2 seconds, although the modes are not what I would be thinking. Things like X input, D input, Bluetooth discoverable, Android mode. It says DS5, HID mode, G-touch mode, mobile phone style modes. Also, as with many controllers, this has a calibration if you're having issues with your thumbsticks or triggers, but I wouldn't recommend running this calibration just because you want a totter controller. It doesn't really work like that. This is just if you're having issues. It can get you back to a normal running controller. A couple of quick notes while we're on the manufacturer's listing or landing page for this controller, as it's currently not so...
He distinctly said to blave, and as we all know, to blave means to bluff. Huh?
Goddamn, I'm glad I double checked that. I was thinking of a different GameSir model. There's so many of them, I get them crisscrossed applesauced in my noggin. And they're not only not done, but they are on a roll. They're going to continue that momentum. I just got an email from my representative over there. There's another duo, another pair of GameSir controllers that's releasing over the next couple of months, and they want me to get my hands on it for a little early test and review, which of course I'm gonna do for the Stallions and Stallionettes here. That kind of adds to the video I made the other day going over the model lineup and the buyer's guide with how many sub $60 controllers there are from GameSir currently. This controller is $46 on Amazon, and sure enough, there is no price discrepancy. It's the same exact amount of ducats over here on the listing page of the manufacturer. Love to see that. This does have analog thumbstick modules. These are what they look like. They are rated for 5 million cycles, and this was changed. Remember, I kind of squawked about this. Hey, this should be changed. It says 500 million cycles when IRL it's 5, not 500. GameSir has revised or changed that, and I love to see that. There's also analog triggers, not nearly as much of a selling factor because it's not as much of a point of failure as potentiometer thumbsticks. Also, it mentions this as rubberized grips, but it kind of feels plasticky IRL. And the maximum expansion or length is 168 millimeters for your phone, so make sure you look at the tech specs for your phone and make sure it fits. And there is a software application available, but only on Android phones. No Windows PC or Mac, no iPhone support, just Android phones, but from what I've heard, it actually is pretty good for a mobile phone app. And if you want to see the tech specs from the manufacturer's lips, things like the product size, dimension, weight, it's all here for you. So as for the pros, cons, and verdict, I'm going to approach this a little bit differently and tell you what group or demographic I think this would be great for, and that is if you're on the go and you kind of prioritize portability and having a small compact controller versus a really large ergonomic controller. Because I do strongly believe that the G8 Galileo, even at double the price, is a better overall snap and clip style controller. You have 2 rear buttons, as this has none, and you have
more premium or pro style features, and all of the components are full size. The face buttons feel like a normal controller, the analog sticks, and overall, the ergonomics of it feel like a full-size controller. This is a lot smaller and also feels a lot cheaper in hand. Having said that, it is half the price. Very budget-friendly snap and clip style controller that has magnetic Hall effect thumbstick modules that are virtually stick drift proof and has other components that are really good, like a D-pad for them retro games, and bumpers and triggers that are gonna kick ass in racing games. Having said that, if I could only pick one snap and clip style controller as of current, it would be the G8 Galileo, which again is double the price and quite a bit bigger. So if you're prioritizing portability and budgetness, this is for sure getting my highest recommendation and is linked in the description below. Drop in the comments section below what you stallions and stallionettes are using to play on the go, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more stallions and stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.